Today we're actually going to talk about a little bit of a lesson learned or a failure, a small failure on the homestead in part of what we grew in 2021. Essentially, one of the things that we harvested that we were really excited about when we have gotten around to trying to process that, we've discovered that it didn't develop to the point that it was going to be usable for us, and that is our sunflowers. So this video is about our sunflower failure. Now, we've grown sunflowers in the past, kind of dabbled in it, but in 2021 we decided we were going to try to purposely grow the Russian mammoth sunflowers, which are a striped variety, kind of known for their eating quality, and they're, I'm going to say, fairly common. They're well known. They're a big sunflower, so you get big heads off them, as opposed to a lot of small, multiple heads generally. Well, we grew them, and we had to go back and check when we harvested them, but we posted our video on the 2nd of October. So we're within kind of 3 or 4 days of that. So right around the end of September, beginning of October, which was when we were, I think that was when we got our first frost. We had harvested them ahead of that because we knew we didn't want them to have issues there. So we harvested them. We dried them in our grow room over the winter, which actually worked really well. So we do have some positives. We did learn we can dry and store the sunflowers, but we did run into an issue. So here's kind of all of our heads, and you can see some of them were quite large, like this big guy over here. We were quite happy about those, to be honest. You can see the sunflowers are starting to fall off. And so the positive here was we did learn how to sort of properly store them. Now, we ended up harvesting, when we weighed this, there was about almost 52 pounds. It was 51.8, I think it was. So almost 52 pounds of sunflowers, which is pretty good. We had high aspirations of doing things like making sunflower butter and spits and all these other things. But, so this one that I've just broke open is actually one of the better ones. Let's see if I can get it out of here. These are pretty small. There's our little nut meat, I guess, as you would, or seed meat. Like I say, this is one of the better ones. And what we've basically found is, even though the heads matured and they started to turn, they didn't grow. This one's even smaller. Hard to get out.
It disintegrated. There's nothing.
They basically didn't mature well enough. So although we do have some seed meat there, we don't have much. And this is kind of across the board. This all of these seed heads are basically the same. Not getting a lot of meat out of those sunflower seeds is kind of a bit of an issue. And essentially what we're pretty sure happened is we didn't have enough growing days before we got the frost for them to mature enough to be worthwhile harvesting. So, and of course we didn't know that until we opened up the seeds and found that out. Good learning curve. We know we can grow sunflowers. We know we can store sunflowers. We know we can dry them out. All of those wonderful things that you need to do to be able to get a product out of them. But we also know that we potentially need a sunflower that grows a little bit faster. We've toyed back and forth because obviously sunflowers, there's numerous varieties with all sorts of different qualities. But we really want them for human and livestock feed. So we're kind of mostly either looking at a black oil type or a striped seed type. Now the striped seed type are usually more commonly equated with human food, and the black oil is more commonly equated with livestock food. But I think where we live, this sort of kind of seals the deal for us that we need something that matures a little bit faster. In 2022, we are going to make a switch to the mammoth, or the black mammoth sunflower. So the black mammoth sunflower is another giant sunflower variety, but it is a black or oilseed type sunflower, which there's advantages there too, because we would like to experiment seeing whether we can make some oil, cold press oil out of the sunflower seeds. So stay tuned if we get that far. But this variety, it says on the seed pack that it's 40 to 45 days. Well, that's to a bloom. So that is pretty quick, but we did do some research, and it takes about 110 days to get mature seeds for eating, for harvest. Russian mammoth sunflower is 120 days. Well, 10 days doesn't seem like much, but keep in mind, when we harvested our 2021 seed heads, we basically did it because we knew there was frost coming. And even though we continue to have decent weather well into October, we still get frost. So that means they're not going to keep developing after that. That's going to kill the plant, which is what it did on us. So had we not harvested those, we still wouldn't have got viable sort of seed meat, or we wouldn't have got viable seeds out of them. So in addition to some of the other things that we've learned about growing sunflowers, which, I mean, sunflowers are so common, it sounds funny that we're taking lessons learned on growing sunflowers, but in addition to what we've learned, these aren't going to go to complete waste. We are going to use them as livestock food for the chickens. They'll have a great time with it. We may try to sprout some, although the little bit we've tried didn't really result in too much, which goes back to the seeds not being completely mature. So it's not going to get wasted, but in our poundage of food brought in, essentially this 51, almost 52 pounds really doesn't count because it's not viable like we had hoped. But we still learned some extremely valuable lessons in growing sunflowers as a food item. So we're going to see. In 2022, we're going to switch to a different variety. We have some experience growing sort of more generic black oil sunflower seeds in the past. Works quite well. They're well adapted for our environment, for lack of a better way to put it, but they don't tend to produce big, easy to harvest seed heads, and you get a lot of little flower heads that you can still harvest them, you can still make it work, but it would be nice to have, because this is borderline a grain E type crop, it would be nice to have the big seed heads sort of to maximize your yield. So stay tuned in our 2022 growing season to see how we do with these black mammoth sunflowers, and see if the switch to something that takes just 10 days less time to reach full maturity actually pans out for us.